Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight. Mrs. Steve, as I put in chat earlier, is upstairs watching football. And last I heard, Georgia was winning or may have won. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Normally, Mrs. Steve is here with me, and she monitors chat. And so she's able to put the questions in there during our short presentations or presentations that we normally have. Tonight, I'm doing it solo, so you just have to bear with me as we move forward, and I handle chat and the questions as I come across them. But as you're in chat, be mindful and be respectful of families, mods, and others, and enjoy your time here in chat. Of course, when we're talking about certain cases and things, we don't allow where you mention people by name, persons of interest by their name or anything. There's no need for that. And because everyone has their own theories of what's going on, and not everyone is correct. Not me, not regardless of what the facts are right now, we don't know all the information that law enforcement has. So let's not possibly destroy someone's life that has absolutely been the unfortunate of circumstances and that results from this tragedy. But anyway, let's go in here in the chat and see who's here right quick. There's Miss Cunningham, glad to see you. Black Witter, Bama Sin says, I have to go rewatch this, and she's watching football also. Great to have you here. Renee Santiago, this is interesting, and this is exactly who I want here. I want people that want answers, and absolutely, I don't want the old information hasn't led us to anything that is groundbreaking. We don't have what the final story is, and we have to go out there and come up with some ideas and go out there and see if we can't get answers. And she likes to see some answers. I'm with you. I'm 100% on your side, Renee. And if you're anywhere in the area, we're going to be out there in probably about 8 days, I guess. So if you're in the area and you want to get some answers, we'd appreciate your help. And if you're not able to do that, tonight's show is more about speaking and interacting with the community. Of course, I have a list of different types of tests and things that I want answered when I put boots on the ground, from sound test of other vehicles in the areas, line of sight, vocals, how long and what directions, and how sound carries in that area, so that I can understand what the searchers might have been up against, to also that if DeOrr was yelling for help, could he have been heard? And because if he was a lost child or he was in a panic, when children begin to cry and scream for help, regardless if it's due to some type of water hazard or threat or from a predator attack, how would that sound travel, or even from an abduction? And that's what we need to answer. But absolutely, I 100% agree with Renee, and that we all want answers. And I appreciate your perspective, and I agree with you that we shouldn't just dig up the same old information. Let's try to do something new. And so absolutely. So y'all just have to bear with when we go like this. And But hopefully, Renee, you hang around, and I hope you enjoy this channel, and I hope you have some great input into our channel. All right, let's see here. Copper Horse, good to see you. Appreciate you being here. Angela, good to see you. Black Witter. Black Witter, absolutely. Just have some patience, but and we are trying to do that. But once again, guys, everybody's emotional about this thing, and we should be emotional about it. We're talking about a small child that has disappeared for whatever reason, and we need those answers, because if it's just an accident or a lost child, we need those answers. If it's someone that is truly evil enough to harm this child, the potential of other children being harmed is out there, and we have to answer that also, and do our part. Let's see here. Let's see here. And then there's me while I was in there earlier. Cop Horse says, "Yay, Georgia for the win." Gail Hurd, good to see you. Di, good to see you. And let's see here. Molly's here. Good to see you. I need all my mods, and I have some great mods out there that help me, especially on nights like this. Let's see here. Hopefully the trolls, the other night, everybody was so busy. We had some trolls. I didn't get to see them. And I enjoy interacting with the community. But whenever Mrs. Steve is here, I don't have the same ability of trying to keep up. And they do a great job on doing that. 63 clocks. This will do nicely. Good to see you. All right. And let's see. Before I get too far behind, Renee say, "I sure hope that you have new information on this case or a new insight." As of until I get boots on the ground, no. But I do wish that, like I said, while you're here, you said that you want questions answered. Absolutely, put them in chat. Exactly what questions you would do, and we're looking at this tonight from the standpoint of this. Let's imagine that you are the parents on site and this is your child. What would be your first steps that an accident or your child is missing? What would be your first steps? Where would you look? How would you perform a search? What would you do? And then if you're the first officer, I would want you to submit what questions, what do you think? What locations would you check? And the reason I'm doing this is for this fact, that of course I have my list of tests that I am compiling, and I have, Chris and I are going to be extremely busy for several days while we're up there in that area. And hopefully we're able to answer all the stuff that we want to get answered. But just to cover our bases and make sure, for the fact that through a community and through the group interactions, there's going to be a lot of angles that, hopefully we didn't miss, but I know that we missed some angles. I'm not the smartest person that ever lived, but I am smart enough to know that when you have a group of individuals and you have that collective thought process, that through this collective thought process and critical thinking, people will come out and they will inspire you with certain questions, certain angles that you may not have thought of. And that's what I want to cover. It's, Idaho, from where I'm at, is probably over, actually it's about a little bit over 2,000 miles. So it's not a place I can go to every day or every week and visit and answer these questions. So that when I go out there, every moment that I'm on boots on the ground, I have to make the most of those moments. And and I want to be able to answer all the questions, not only the ones I thought of or Chris has thought of, or what as we go out there and we discuss and find new things that need to be looked at. We want that the community also possibly will have some through their process of analyzing, looking at this crime. What answers do they want? And so I agree with you, Renee. Once again, yes, we want new insight, and the only way I can think of doing it, and like I said, this is the last chance I get before I've already started packing my vehicle. And so within 48 hours, I'll be on the road. I've got to go up into the Midwest and help another a couple families on cold cases. And when I leave Indiana, I will be heading to Idaho. All right. Let's see here what we got going on. Dave's in the house. Good to see you. Molly says that we have rules. That we do. Boston Christian, good to see you. Yes, like I said, I don't. Most of the cold cases I work, there's we do victimologies and things, and even when up to the teenagers' years. But with a child that's a toddler, the victimology is not necessary for the fact that um, other than understanding who is the care persons and what was normal routine, when did they sleep, when did they take naps, interactions such as that is what is extremely important. But as far as independent activities, files such as DeOrr would not have any independency. Oh, and Room has a personal block of the night. Who did we block? That's okay. Yeah, if anybody gets out of hand, absolutely block them. Solar Chef's $50 in loving memory of my friend Yvette Woodruff, who was taken from us 33 years ago today by a serial offender. Her case made closing many other cold cases possible, bringing answers and justice to many families. Absolutely, Solar Chef. I feel for your loss, and we absolutely feel for the family's loss. And but through her tragedy, as you say, that the closing of other cold cases were made possible, and that is a great legacy for her and for those to have. And so, if you would send me an email, a little bit more information about that case, I absolutely find that fascinating. Thank you. And we should honor those for the fact that these victims' families, and through the technologies and the prosecution of these cases, that we see these situations, and we should recognize that through losses and things that there are great legacies of these people. They had lives, they had potential, and it was taken from them by some sick monster. And we have to recognize those people. Let's see here. Who else we got here? Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Solar Chef. Um, Normally Mrs. Steve does that. I'm sorry I missed it there, but there you go. Appreciate it. Thank you. And see Madison Stevens, Miranda Lee, good to see you. Who else is in the chat? WL22's here. Sharon, Monique. If I miss anybody, um, and this is absolutely is how come that we're making this trip. From what Anna here says, it's not possible to understand this disappearance without going there. The current sheriff understands; he lives there, and we and that's the importance of, you can look at it, and you can watch YouTubes, you can look at Google Earth, you can see all this stuff, but you don't understand the environment. You don't know how loud that creek is. You don't understand the some of the sounds and how it is channeled, and through hollows and terrain. And that's one of the things I really want to understand. Miss Fancy, good to see you. All right, before I go much more in the chat, we're going to look a little bit at the presentation here tonight. If you have any information about this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement has that information so that answers can be found, regardless of what information is out there. Someone knows something. If it was due to other circumstances other than a natural uh, uh, event, such as some uh, predator or terrain issue, from mining to other things, I have a list here. We'll be looking at some of the possibilities of what could have happened, but like I said, there's so many things, but if you have any informations or theories about this, make sure that those that have the power to go out and have an impact have that knowledge. Let's see here. Now, this is, of course, the terrain that we're looking at, from the reservoir to the creek to the campground to rock threats, rock slide, extremely rough terrain. From what I can assess of the situation, it's not someplace that I've ever been at. As far as, I've drove through a lot of mountainous areas, but I've never been boots on the ground, so I have limited understanding of that terrain. Georgia mountains, Georgia forest, absolutely. I have no fear of the terrain in Georgia, or even the predators in Georgia, and we share some of the same predators here that they share out there. Although there's some bigger predators and critters out there than we have here, but and our bear population is eastern black bears, a little bit different from what their black bears and the grizzlies that they have. Although it's zoned, it doesn't say there's grizzlies in this area, but I'm not going to take that chance. But BG's in the house. Good to see you. And then, of course, the temperature and the weather conditions for that day is nothing that is absolutely life-threatening, although it's 41 degrees anywhere under the right conditions, if it's wet or otherwise ground wet, is something that under prolonged situations that is would lead to certain threats, but it's not anything that's instant. It's not like it's below freezing temperatures. And there's a lot of children and otherwise that have been in far worse conditions than 41 degrees and have survived for numerous days and have been found by searchers, and some of them miraculously. So the weather conditions for those first 24 hours is not something that would absolutely put me in that, oh, okay, we're here for a recovery versus a finding a lost child. Then, of course, some of the scenarios that we have to look at, and I want these questions based upon, is, what steps would you take? Where would you look first if your child was missing from just possibly walking away, becoming lost? The threats of the reservoir, the threats of the creek, what areas would you look in? And the mining in the area, what type of holes are there? Are there wells? The rock slide area, from predators to the possibility of abduction, what are the routes in, out, what answers and what testing would you want done for those? And of course, in a small part right now, we're not getting into the situation of, because law enforcement will absolutely jump to and cover the base of, is it someone that is known to the missing child that is possibly responsible? We'll get these first answers about the on-site threats, and some of the people, and the only people that could have been responsible are, of course, if it's an abduction or someone known to the victim, it's going to be a limited number of people. If it's known to the victim, we got 4 people there. If it's possibly people fishing at the creek, then we have to look into that, but that's will be something that we'll do in the future. Right now, we really want to concentrate upon these first 4 areas. All right, let me get over here and chat, get caught back up. And like I said, if you got any suggestions of certain testings or steps that you believe need to be looked at, put them in there. And this is a good point from Andrew. One thing I've heard from professional search teams is that children under 5 don't think to turn around and go back the way they came when they feel lost. They just keep going forward faster and faster. I was raised on a pretty good sized farm, and we were able to play on acres and acres of land. And we had one rule that we had cattle that ran not only fields and pastures, but also woodland. And so our rule is that you stayed within the pastures and the woodland of where the cattle were. You do not go through any of the fences. And so we understood that, and it wasn't anything, but that was back in the '60s, and a very rural county and very rural, and I, as you play with your brothers and sisters and you're out there rambling around, there were always, there were multiple of us. Once we got to a certain age, of course, we'd go out there and do those solo adventures, and spend a lot of time in those woodlands and those pastures, and so I had a great childhood. All right, Junior Johnson's in the house. Good to see you. And this Ann says that she was raised in this type of environment and within the same state of Idaho, and that at one point that she became distracted as a child, and she just didn't see her parents, sat down and began howling. And that's one of the tests that I want to do. Is I want to go to certain areas within a certain distance of that count and establish exactly how far and what areas, because sound may carry better from certain locations on hillsides. And so if we are looking at a lost child that is not in the creek or in the reservoir, what directions would he go that he wouldn't be heard by someone in the encampments? So this is exactly some of the things that we will be doing out there, trying to establish those so that when we come back, we'll be able to have a grid map of areas of what sound travels, how good it is, and at what levels, from a normal tone to a scream. And so we will have those results for y'all when we get back. The Di says, "Glad your parents always found you, Hannah." Absolutely. Um, True Crime Web. Did you see the case Chris covered of Jared Atadero? His clothing and skull were found 4 years after the disappearance at an elevation of 500 feet higher than where he was last seen. I haven't seen Chris's coverage of it, but I have seen a YouTube video, and I don't remember who the creator was or if it was part of the who's the guy that does all the missing. Um, and if it's one of those that I watched of where the two guys were up there and it was found within the rock ledge area of previous search teams had been in that area and had missed the tennis shoe. If this is the same case, I seem to think that's the same name. Sharon says, I would call 911 first. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the, when we have that within a certain amount of time, it was done. Um, but I don't, of course, you just, as a child, I can remember one of my brothers late one evening become missing on the farm. Um, and, um, and he was located. It took us about 30 minutes, 45 minutes to find him. But he was off. The hogs had gotten out of the hog lot and were with the cows back in some of the woods. And my brother had saw that the hogs had escaped, and he was trying to corral them up. And it was late at evening, and he missed our supper time call in, and so we all went out hunting for him. But like I said, that was back in the '60s, or yeah, it would have been in the '60s then. Miss Miss Fancy. Steve, is law enforcement going to share the file? Will the PIs be sharing any info with you? Chris and I are going out there solo on this first one. And it's a mixed emotional or thought process of that if you rely upon certain things, you're going to give credit to certain areas and certain things that individuals are very biased. And when you talk to them, they say, "Oh, that's been done." And we look at the Kylie Rodney case, we would still be looking for Kylie Rodney for the fact that, oh, that area has been searched. And so sometimes relying upon other information that's been established by professionals and otherwise, things get missed. Been there. I've been responsible and I've told people and I've worked with officers that, you know, absolutely believed that there was no one hiding in that area. And so, um, and then you go and there they are. And so, same with missing, you just never know. And so you have to be so careful. At some point, yes, I will try to cooperate and work with these people as much as possible and look forward to working with them. What's your take on Granddad's inappropriate laugh during his interview? I've seen so many people, and when you deal with elderly, I mean, you're talking about people that, you know, we all have older loved ones, and older loved ones sometimes um, um, they do a lot of things out of character that they would have never done 10, 20, 15 years earlier. And so I don't know exactly of his mental condition. I don't know what his normal stuff was. And so I don't play a lot when you're dealing with, it's like talking to a child. They may say things and they don't realize and the full impact of their statements or their rationalization of certain things. And so with the elderly, same thing. I don't put a lot of emphasis on that right now. Some point on down the road, we'll look at that again. Let's see here. Dandy, Linus, good to see you. Miranda says, how much of the surrounding area of the campground has been searched? Maybe searching higher elevation would be helpful. I would imagine that everything has been searched at every elevation that you can imagine. And so I would think that has been done, uh, but don't know. Right now, we're going to focus upon what we're going to do. And if it, we will try to probably get back out there again if with whatever analysis that we do as we look at these areas and these things that we want to go out there and have a better understanding and what directions could he have been going for 10, 15 minutes and gotten out of earshot? What threats are within that 10 to 15 minutes in line of sight that, you know, if he'd walked off in a certain directions that you would have seen him for, if he was still moving along certain directions and lines, and it may be a broad swath. We just don't know. That if you looked out there, it may be a giant slice of pie. That if he went off this embankment or he went down this valley, are there certain terrain features that if you went down that valley that he could dropped off on that he would have been out of sight within that first 10 or 15 minutes? Don't know those answers yet. That's how come we're going to go out there, do a responsible, absolute detail, everything that we can out there so that when we come back, we'll have a full understanding of, okay, he wouldn't have walked this way because he could have been seen for 45 minutes down that valley. And so it's just trying to answer some of the stuff. And then that gives you areas of that. If he didn't go this way for 10 or 15 minutes, he could have gone this way. And so that's what we're looking for. Senior Johnson, and yes, first thoughts panic, and then a frantic search, and then call police and rescue. Absolutely, that would be it. But what areas would you have looked at first during that frantic search? And that's what I want people to think about. What direction would you have went in first? Would it? Would you have had the mental forethought to look and see that, oh, down the valley, I don't see him in this direction. Do you think he would have went uphill? And knowing children and what were that child's habits? Was he a child that enjoyed climbing up hills? Was he a child that if there was water nearby, he was playing in the water? And some of those characteristics, when we talk to the family in the future, we will apply those to what we find on this one. Thank you, Renee. And like I said, absolutely, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions or anything that you want answer for, we're going to do our best to get those answers back to you. And we appreciate your perspective. And uh, everybody should be held that if you're going to be involved in a case, you try to do the best and have the greatest impact on that case. I'm with you. I want answers. And I hope that looking at it from this perspective, um, has this been done? I don't know. But I know that for me to be able to proceed, I have to have these answers that if we cover our bases on these, then I can move to my next steps of what we need to get answered. Oh yeah, there's all different types of search teams and search protocols, and first responders. That we had certain areas for the water threats, road threats, and certain things that we would check out. And always, when it's residential, you got to do a search of that residence to ensure that the child's just simply not sleeping in a closet. I don't know how many times that has happened, but it does. Gail Hurd, $10 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate it for your support. Absolutely. Thank you. I got the blue light on that one finally. Um, and I believe I saw this interview, whereas when she couldn't, that and that she identified that yes, the creek area, the water, and I would believe that, and that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in that reservoir and that creek, for the fact that I'm the same way as a child. If there was water nearby, I was in it, and so I can see the interest of that. And unfortunately, in my career, I saw several children that were lost, and they either went and got into um, swimming pools that were accessible, and they lost their lives. And even when they were fenced in, they would find a way in. They were driven to get to those water areas, and so I've been there and seen that. It's an absolute tragedy when that happens. And Sharon Edwards, I would check the immediate area and yell for the child before calling 911. And that's some of the things that we're going to be able to do, for the fact that when we get out there and we do certain directions, such as going up a hill, that going up a hill for 15 minutes is different than walking down a valley for 15 minutes. And distances vary. And so that's some of the things that we're going to be looking at and evaluating and trying to get those answers. I and this is a brilliant thought process, because I had actually, not that I had thought of this, but you are correct. Um, it would be extremely interesting to take a group of individual children one at a time from a known location and put them in that area during that time frame and see what their natural are drawn to. Is it a certain terrain feature, um, or certain sounds? But the unknowns is what happened that day. Was there a small cat, kitten? Was there a bear, cub? Um, was there an eagle? Was there bird noises? Was there a rabbit running? Fox? What could have distracted the child if it is merely a child that walked away and took off and became lost and confused? We won't know those, but it would be interesting that if you just took the children and see if there's a certain terrain feature that a child that's during that 2 to 3 years of age if they will identify something and naturally go that way. I had thought of that, but there's some other things that would set it off. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. That would be a great and interesting prospect. Great idea, but might be suspicious to want to borrow a child. Oh, that's funny right there. Um, let's see here. Ishi Garza says, number one, people in the area. Two, the distance the child could have traveled during the time he had no eyes on him. And yes, and some of the testing that we are going to do, because I believe Grandpa mentioned that he believed that there was someone fishing at the reservoir. And so Chris and I will be conducting some sound tests on vehicles from the campsite to a vehicle at that area. Can you hear car doors slam? Can you hear people um, speaking? Can you hear a vehicle driving on the road? Can you hear a horn? Can you hear a hood slam? Can you what anything? Can you hear a fishing pole being thrown in the back of a vehicle? But some of those things that we want to test and see if those sounds could travel from the reservoir down to where the campground is, where Grandpa, because uh, and can you hear that along the creek too? For the fact, if you're on the creek, could you hear those sounds? Because you may have water that will, kind of disguise certain sounds and noises. And like I said, the only way to understand that is be there. And so we've got our work cut out for us, and I'm looking forward to it. Um, I know Chris has certain things that he wants to conduct, and absolutely we will conduct those also. Black Witter, your favorite spider here. Thank you. And Molly, that you absolutely 100% correct on that. It is a beautiful tribute to a lost friend and loved one. And this is good. I'm glad you sent us because uh, I will we will do that test and see when the as you drive down that road. This is a good one. I hadn't uh, thought about at what point of taking our phones, and I'll have multiple. Let's say I may carry two phones with me, and so I'll be able to compare that, and Chris will have his, and we'll check our signal strength as we approach town or go up the hill and see where that happens. That's a great love to hunt. That is a great, um, and that's what I was talking about for people to provide certain things that will inspire cert testing to be done, uh, signal strength test as you drive that towards town. Yes, that's what I want. Thank you. Great point. And then I'd want to know where the non-fam member was the whole time. Yes, and I'm sure law enforcement would have covered that, and that'd be something that in the future, whatever answers after our analysis of this would be. And Anna is absolutely makes the point that the noise of a flowing creek, at least here in Georgia, will cover and disguise a lot of other sounds. Molly, I don't know if they do or not. That'd be something that if when I speak to law enforcement, if they share that, I don't know if they will or not. That says I have a fresh can of scroll spray. Excellent. Let's see, just trying to get caught back up with the chat. Oh, Molly, fastest whacker troll. Well done, yeah. I'm so far behind in chat that by the time I never see it. And I appreciate our mods. We have some great mods. Copper Horse, Molly, all of those that are out there. Mrs. Steve has a list of all the mods. I don't know if I know them all or not. Mr. C, great resource book is Lost Person's Behavior, Search and Rescue Guide on Where to Look for Land, Air, and Water by Robert Coster, a world-renowned lost person behavioralist. Thank you for that. And reason I don't have a problem promoting some of these experts is for the fact that they're experts. Have they've written books, they're published, and it's good for everyone to have resources to look at. We have our search and rescue and training and stuff that we've done here in Georgia. I'm sure is a little bit different than what they do out there in some of that mountainous areas. Threats are going to be pretty common, but like I said, they have a few more critters than what we have. And you are correct, Junior. The most dangerous animal is. I've run across them, man. Mindy Harris. uh, you get them die, and I'll make stuffed animals out of their pelts. Y'all are wild. Just getting Mike D experience. Good to see you. Right where it says, you love cows. I was raised with them. Um, done everything you can imagine. Uh, uh, we used to butcher our own animals, both beef and hog, and so raised on a farm. Collect eggs, chickens, whatever. Uh, so just farm animals. Robin's in the house doing laundry. I see there. Good. I've got a bunch of laundry, and I'll have a bunch of laundry. Poor Mrs. Steve, when I get back, as she likes to do my laundry because she gets on me when I do my laundry. I don't understand the sorting process. I just understand you fill that there machine up. It's sort of like the Google machine, and you push buttons and clothes get washed. At some point, I probably will establish and see if there is a child that within that period. I just don't know at what time frame that would be, but that is an interesting experiment to see where they look and you know where would they go if there is a terrain feature that they find fascinating. But I would have to try to speak with, and I would speak with the parents of um, of DeOrr and get an understanding of what his interests were. And then you'd have to go out and find a child and through questionnaires or otherwise, and find several children of the same interest, because it would do no good if you took a child that loved butterflies, and you had a child that loved chasing squirrels. Um, and and so while one of them might be distracted by one thing, the other child wouldn't. And I would try to match the personality of a child similar to DeOrr to do that test. That's just my thoughts. Mindy says, I have to do laundry. I don't have anything clean to wear. Debbie W says $5. Thank you. Mr. Steve, have you given any thought into bringing in kids around DeOrr's age? Yes, I saw that earlier, um, and I had thought about it, but like I said, there's more to it that I would try to match his personality, and that will be something that after we get, and if we go out there and I find something, because Mrs. Steve is hard to keep up with me whenever I go out. I get distracted too. So I'm probably pretty much like, a lot of wives out there with their husbands that they get distracted and they wander off, and I'm about as bad as anybody. Yes, a good suggestion just went by in chat about accuracy of actual child's voice on site. Are there any statistics about decibel of children at certain ages? Some of the testing that we're going to do is that I will see um, if we can take um, a, a certain technology, such as a loudspeaker or a bullhorn, and because they make predator um, devices, of whereas when you go out and hunt predators, that you can put soundtracks, and I will see if I can get that technology there and set up that a certain decibel, and then see how far we can hear that. And if I can get a recording of a child, and we get it at those decibels, that's some of the testing that I'm looking at, and be able to do it from that, not so much from a live child, but I'm trying to find all the equipment to do that. So, but that's one of the things that we are looking at. Great suggestion. Thank you. No, Miranda, I don't know what areas, but like I said, I would imagine those early days when they brought in horses and all the search team, that just about anybody and everything was searched within a mile of there extremely well. I'm speculating, but we're going to go see. Monique, has any of the baby's belongings ever been found in the area where he went missing? Not that I am aware of. From his boots that was reported often fell off, that they haven't been found, to any clothing article. Yes, Anna. The beeline of the dogs to the reservoir is of great interest. And Robin, good point about older people's hearing. Anna says it went out 5 miles as far as the search pattern. And yes, the terrain issues, from the mining to holes to wells to root ball displacement and ground disturbances. Yes, that is a great point. Pamela Goodson, good to see you. Miss Fancy says water, and Robin says I'd head towards water. And Miss Cyrene, yes, that's one of the things, like I said, that when we, at some point, I would like to speak to the parents and understand DeOrr's personality of, everyone's, children, they're energetic, they're, during that age, they explore, but certain children have fears. And some fears are that they, every child's different. We just don't know where he is. I don't know. The parents know. Law enforcement probably knows. But I would like to hear that firsthand from them and try to understand him, and then we'll go from there. The river, okay. Uh, this will do nicely. Garden Critter says, I'd run towards the water first. Absolutely. That was one of our main things. And average human screen can be between 80 and 120 decibels. Couldn't find anything about child specific. Yes, and children um, at that age may just sit down and cry, or they may, like I said, depends on their character and how, you know, um, uh, are they loners? Are they fearful of anything? Are they curious? There's so many different things. Um, let's see here. Madison says, check the water first. Um, are you guys taking a GPS with a topographical map? I have some topographical maps on my computer of the area, and of course now you got phones with GPS. I don't know how good of the signal will be there, but we're going to look at that. Yes, and that is a good search pattern. The a circle greater one, we use that on crime scenes and missing persons. It's done. Yes, Irene. Mr. Steve just answered my question. Should have waited 5 minutes. Yeah, I just get to them as I can, and I'm sure I probably missed several questions. Just have to bear with me tonight, guys. Deb says something's wrong with mom and dad's story, and we'll look at that in the future. I just want to try to approach it from what the first of responding officers will looked at. Let's see here. Deb says the whole going to store thing is odd to me. Yeah, and you know, like I said, that's something for the future that we'll be looking at. T. Lemon, thank you for working on this, Mr. Steve. I'm sure you will find out the truth. I hope that we do have an impact. Polygraph, good to see you. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, we did a little work on Nightbot or the mods and all. And Mrs. Steve have done some work. And law enforcement, I would hope that they would have checked those areas to for several reasons. That law enforcement officers, when you check households, vehicles, um, uh, refrigerators, freezers, trunks, whatever, you're not only looking for the child, but you're looking for other articles and other evidence from body fluids on. There's a lot of things that you look for. Mary L12 499. Thank you. Did you ever get in touch with the PI, David Mashburn, that you and Chris mentioned? Not at this point, but Chris and I have discussed it. And at some point, he looked at it, and there was some about that. Was he still doing that or not? I can't remember the conversation. I think it was involving this PI, but I may be confused on the name. But there was something about one of the PIs that we were talking about speaking to in the future, the phone number or the possibility they were no longer involved. And I can't, don't recommend you suggest Mrs. Steve that use her grandchild for that experiment. Not until our next grandchild gets of that age, because um, uh, our first grandchild is already past that age, and so we wouldn't be able to do that. Oh, did I hope I got blue on that last one. I'm sorry if I didn't. There's blue light. I forget, guys. Y'all just have to bear with me. Um, I don't know if they ever question anyone that has ever come forward. You would think that if someone was in the area fishing that day, and if Grandpa is correct, um, that if they were fishing in the area that day, that they would have come forward, and they may have. We just don't know that answer, and we have to think about that and see if they did. But we'd have to. Uh, but if there was someone there and they didn't come forward, I would find that highly suspicious. Mind each other out there. I know you're tough guys. Thank you. I'm not going to be the one dressed up like a seal um, in bear country. Uh, so, uh, so if Chris wants to dress up like a seal in bear country and swim around the water like a seal, uh, I'm going to encourage it, and I'll take pictures. And yes, the signal strength could have changed in 8 years. And if it's still, but if it hasn't, we'll be able to answer that. We may be able to answer it when we get to camp and we have full bars. May not, but we want to check that. And you're absolutely correct. It could have changed in 8 years. Steve, that sounds like a sociological study that maybe stays like that. I'll check. Thank you. Appreciate it. If you find anything, send it to me, Steve at truecrimeweb.com. And says 10-minute max, and then call LE immediately and continue to search. If you find them, great. Law enforcement will be happy to. And yeah, uh, it depends on a lot of times when we arrived on the scene of how we, you know, with the parents, and for the fact you're bringing in tracking dogs and what areas have been searched, and you know what threats are there, for the fact that you have to guard against that. You can't take all the searchers back, but you can strategically place people in certain areas, but not contaminate the scent trails or destroy scent trails with other people searching back and forth over areas that the child may have went. And so it's a fine edge that you walk of who's there, boots on the ground, who's searching, what are they doing, and what threat areas from roadways, water threats of of staging these people, and then having them stay in those locations and bring in those dogs so that you don't have anything destroyed. It's a fine line. It's hard to convince people sometimes during those emotional moments. Are you two camping in a tent or a camper? We've got tent, we've got camping equipment. But also it depends on the weather. We'll have a vehicle that we can also sleep in if we have to. Wanda Brown. I hadn't seen this, but I need to go and look that up. Body language experts. Um, uh, that's a good point. And everyone has opinions, and uh, they have a great understanding of emotional and uh, views of how human behave. And I put some um, weight in their words. Does high altitude change how far sound travels or how loud you can be with thinner air? I would expect so, and that's how come I'm waiting to get out there. Mandy, and that's exactly what the speaking to the parents and understanding his likes, dislikes, how adventurous he was. Uh, was he a daddy's boy or a mama's boy? And uh, where would he go? And if he heard them talking, and if they were on the creek yelling at each other or having a discussion over any certain area of, oh, here's some fish, go get DeOrr, would he have been able to hear them? And those are things that we want to answer. Ollie said, kids are drawn to bugs and water. In my experience, I was. I don't really like bugs, but don't like spiders at all. You wouldn't be able to tell that by the spider web in my back that Mrs. Steve. I mean, call me Kitty. You're not late. You're here. Good. Good to see you. Down through here, guys. We've been here an hour already. Man, I don't know how Mrs. Steve does this. Anna says, I am thoroughly confused from what family has to say. I think I turned Steve on to this case and I've refreshed my knowledge and my mind, and now my mind is scrambled. I hope I haven't scrambled your mind, but yes, I think uh, your input and was one of the first ones I saw out there about this case, due to the fact that you lived there and you were close to it. I was looking at another case and um, of Monkey Vaughn that was missing from Idaho, and from that it did evolve into a DeOrr. Let's see here. I would think the number one cause of accidental is swimming pools. I think that you are correct there. Trying to get caught up. I hope I'm not missing anybody's comments too bad, but this thing jumps, and if I missed a question or something, bear with me. Um, and that was something I will ask in the future if other campers. And what is the registration process for that? And this is a good point too. Maybe he wasn't running towards something, but running away, and that's some of the sound stuff that we'll be looking at. Because if he is running away, um, did he yell "mama" or "daddy" or "grandpa"? And how far could you hear that if he was fearful or screaming, trying to get away from some type of attack, human or otherwise? Yeah, wasn't another person. Yes, Grandpa had a younger friend that he had brought, male friend, along, and he was in the campsite, and we had the mother, father, Grandpa, Grandpa's friend, and then of course DeOrr. Uh, the accidental death and cover up could have happened at home before they left. Um, you know, we have to taking it at face value at law enforcement and looking at it that okay, let's start with this that uh, was the family's friend. He says that DeOrr was in camp. Some of the statements made by the father about being at the creek, seeing the minnows, is something that, in far as analysis of statements, that he wants to get his son there. That DeOrr likes looking at minnows, and we're going to do that. Chris and I are going to be looking for minnows. I'm, and hopefully we'll have some footage of minnows. Oh man, trying to keep up with my chat. I appreciate everybody being here tonight and bearing with me while I went through this. Um, uh, Monique, how far did the family live from the campground? Did the family own a camper? Sorry, I didn't do my homework. Uh, I think they were several hours, 2+ hours away or something like that. I had seen that mentioned somewhere, and so they traveled after work to get there, and it was almost right at dark when they got there, or something along those lines. Yes, the reservoir isn't that far away, but we're going to know exactly how far away it is. Junior Johnson, my body language, if I lost my kid, would be crazy. Absolutely. Oh, let's see here. Um, he was likely where the candy was. I think they mentioned something about that he wanted to eat candy with Grandpa. So I agree that he was there more than likely eating candy or wanting candy, and either Grandpa walked away inside or not. We'll just have to look at that. Uh, like I said, I'm absolutely trying to get through this chat here and try to make sure I cover everybody. Thank y'all. I want to thank everybody for everybody's support tonight. It means a lot. Yes, Monique. Thanks, the mods. Absolutely. Uh, and because without them, I couldn't do what I do. Because otherwise, by the time I got to what some troll had done, it would be whatever they can do to your channel would be done for quite a while before I got to it. Yes, the nearby reservoir looks pretty big on Google Earth, but not that big. And that's the thing is that when we get there, I know there's been reports that you can basically walk across it, but I want to see and know without an issue that there's not a 20-foot hole in it, or something of those. And I just want to have that information. Uh, Anna answered the question. They live about 100 miles from camp. Okay. I am 100% with Mrs. Steve. I never let my husband touch the washing machine. Yeah, I just throw everything in there. True crime. Did any professional examine grandpa for potential memory dementia? I have no idea if law enforcement went to that extent. And but the you know, if the mother and father, um, if being there, and if DeOrr was there, and we have supporting evidence that the dogs tracked, there's certain interview questions and answers that have been given that indicates that DeOrr was in sight. Um, and then we have an outsider from the family that says DeOrr was there, uh, because the mere question of who would bring a child on a camping trip rings truthful. That we have an individual that's not associated with the family, and he's upset because a child was on site. It's those little key questions and little insights by individuals that are outside of the family loop that are indicators that DeOrr was within the camp. And we have to look at that for the fact that if DeOrr was never in camp, it wouldn't have upset the outside grandpa's friend that who brings a child to a camping trip. And the reason he's upset it had destroyed his image of what that camping trip was going to be. And so it's those little key interview moments and uh, things that people spontaneously utter that are keys when you're looking at interviews and communications between humans of what you evaluate and how you evaluate and what does it mean, um, and the face value. And so there's more to it other than just saying that, you know, is he part of a mass conspiracy? No, I think that if he is being honest and he wouldn't have gone into, he wouldn't have uh, the, not saying that of any of his mental abilities, but it would take a highly um, intelligent individual to understand to create such a dialogue to misdirect law enforcement. And I don't think that's the case that we have here. And uh, so I would take it for what it is that, yes, I believe that DeOrr was there from little statements like that. All right, let me see. I'm sure I got behind here. Yeah, Chelsea, I'm always late back to beginning to watch. You're not. You're fine, Chelsea. Let me get caught back up here. But I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and putting up with me because I'm on a. I've got a long day of packing tomorrow because I'm going to be leaving early Monday morning and going up into the Midwest and then heading after I get that done for 2 or 3 days, heading out to pick up Chris. Uh, have a safe trip. Thank you. I will appreciate that. And then I said, how did so many of us ever make it to adulthood? Um, my mother would always make that. She said I was one that I was one of the most mischievous children that had ever lived. I don't believe that's the case. I had a sister that was extremely mischievous that kept me in trouble. It wasn't my fault. It was my sister. Um, yes, I that's more of the developmental intellectual disability that that individual wouldn't be able to come up with the um, forethought to create an alibi or by uh, creating that they're upset, creating that narrative. Oh, Miranda Lee, thank you for that, for your kind words. Appreciate that. Oh, we got a new member. Uh, um, Rottweilers. I've got that part. Thank you. Appreciate your support. And yes, call me Kitty. That's exactly what I. The point of it is that he wouldn't have the ability, unless it's true, to say that. And it's those little key moments like that that from the investigative world of law enforcement we look at, uh, and they would, they'd recognize it. Mr. Steve blaming the sis. Hey, if you knew my sister, I was the baby of the family. My sister was a couple, 3 years older than me. So, yes. Oh, we have another new member, Cynthia. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Y'all allow us and help us do a lot of things. All righty, guys. I want to appreciate everything and all the kind donations and all the support that we've had, suggestions, and hopefully we'll have some lives while we're out there if we can get a good signal. And so we can try to keep track. And if anything comes up while we're out there, absolutely let us. If you have a question, Gene Darcy, 399 Super Sticker. Thank you. Appreciate that. That while we're out there, we're going to try to get and keep y'all abreast of everything. And as things come up, let us know. All right. But I want to thank all our mods that's here tonight and helping me, because I couldn't do it without y'all. Because, like I say, I stay so far behind in chat. But if y'all have any information on this case, absolutely make sure law enforcement has that. And if you want us to do anything, just send me an email, steve@truecrimeweb.com, and I will try to get that testing done. And I look forward to getting with y'all. I may have a members, and I probably will have a members timeline set up for tomorrow at 7. So all our members, before I go on my trip, will get something. It may not be an extremely long period, but I'll get online with all the members, and look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow night. And but then, like I said, I'm leaving out on Labor Day, and we've got a lot of work to do in the coming days. But we want to thank y'all. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye bye.